On Monday, August the 23rd, 2010, GCHQ codebreaker Gareth Williams failed to turn up for work again at the Secret Intelligence Service, currently known as MI6, where he had been seconded. No one had seen him for over a week. The police were sent around to the security flat in Pimlico, London, not far from the world-famous Tate's British Art Gallery, where he was staying. After forcing entry, officers found his body, naked and decomposing, inside a red sports holdall. It had been padlocked from the outside, but the key was inside the bag, under Williams's body. There were no injuries on the body, and no indications that he had struggled against an attacker or tried to escape. The bag was in the bath, but no finger, foot or palm prints or DNA belonging to Williams were found on the rim of the bath or on the padlock or zipper, and he was not wearing any gloves. There was no sign of a break-in, and the heating in the flat had been turned up, even though it was midsummer, which helped speed decomposition. Toxicology examinations showed no trace of alcohol or drugs. An initial post-mortem proved inconclusive. Nothing was missing from the flat, and a couple seen leaving the building were soon ruled out of the investigation. Williams's family believed that his death was linked to his work at SIS and that fingerprints, DNA and other evidence had been wiped from the scene as part of a deliberate cover-up. Indeed, the authorities were plainly sensitive about the investigation. Foreign Secretary William Hague signed a public immunity certificate authorizing the withholding of the details of Williams's work and exempting officers of America's National Security Agency and the FBI that Williams had worked with from testifying at the inquest. SIS Chief Sir John Sawyers also met with the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, Sir Paul Stephenson, to discuss how the investigation would be handled and who would head it. As a direct result, the coroner, Dr. Fiona Wilcox, was critical of the police's handling of the investigation. Officers in the Met's Counter-Terrorism Branch, SO15, whose role was to interview SIS witnesses, failed to take formal statements and withheld information from the senior investigating officer, Detective Chief Inspector Jackie Sabir. The coroner also criticised the handling of an iPhone belonging to Williams and found in his work locker, which contained deleted images of him naked in a pair of boots. An iPhone found in his living room had recently been wiped and restored to factory settings. LGC forensics were also criticised over DNA contamination, and the coroner's office was censured for failing to inform police officers of a second post-mortem. Wilcox dismissed evidence of Williams's interest in bondage and cross-dressing as irrelevant. Only a tiny percentage of his internet browsing involved visiting bondage sites. Williams was naked in the bag, not dressed in women's clothes, and she condemned leaks to the media about him cross-dressing as a possible attempt by some third party to manipulate a section of the evidence. The idea that he had locked himself in the bag for some autoerotic thrill was also ruled out. The coroner said that Williams was a scrumptious risk assessor. If he had locked himself into the bag, he would have taken a knife in with him to aid his escape. Her conclusion was that Williams was probably alive when put in the bag, but probably suffocated very soon afterwards, either from CO2 poisoning, hypocapnia, or the effects of a short-acting poison. Passing a narrative verdict, one which does not attribute a cause to a named individual, she said she was satisfied that the third party placed the bag in the bath and on the balance of probabilities locked the bag. Therefore, again on the balance of probabilities, he had been killed unlawfully. Scotland Yard spent another year investigating the case, only to reaffirm its original conclusions that Williams was alone at the time of his death, had locked himself inside the bag and died when he could not get out again. This directly contradicted the coroner's findings and was thought extremely unlikely by experts. Allegations then surfaced that Williams had been working when the NSA tracking money siphoned out of Moscow by the Russian mafia. Cars registered to the Russian embassy were spotted near his Pimlico flat in the days before his body was discovered. There were indications that someone had broken in through a skylight the day after the body had been found and tampered with the evidence. Then KGB Detective Boris Karpichkov, exiled in the UK, said that Williams had discovered a Russian agent inside GCHQ after a bungled attempt to recruit him as a double agent by blackmailing him over his private life. Consequently, he had to be killed. This was done by short-lived poison injected in his ear. The heating was turned up in the flat so that traces of the toxin would break down before the body was found. There was also speculation that the SIS might have been responsible. Fearing that Williams might be a whistleblower, they had bumped him off. With their close cooperation with the police, this would be easy cover-up.